This is the Kokomo Post Podcast. This is your number one source for all things Kokomo.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Kokomo Post Podcast. I'm Pam Downing here with my co-host Aaron Larison, and we are so glad that you chose to join us today. If you are just tuning in for the first time or you are retuning in, you'll notice this podcast has a little bit of a different format.
Yeah.
We're excited to be bringing it to you in this fresh new way. Aaron, you are part of the reimagination of this podcast, but I have really loved bringing these conversations with leaders in our community. I really think there's value here for Kokomo.
I do. I think, I have long been a believer that everyone has a story.
Yes.
Right. And I am fascinated and sort of inspired by people who are doing their lives in a way that puts Kokomo in a better position.
Yeah.
Right. And so we talk so much and we get this cool opportunity to have longer form conversations with people who are creating a stronger, better Kokomo.
Yeah.
And that's what a great job we have. And we've got great leaders with us today who will introduce. And, it's just been really cool. So for you guys who are listening, for you guys who have been watching these, we want to know who else do we need to talk with? Because there are so many voices that are creating just, I think, a richer landscape in Kokomo.
I agree. So as you mentioned, we have two of them with us today.
We do.
So I want to introduce to you our guests. We have Marla Geiger, the program manager at the Domestic Violence Shelter at FSA, and Angie Ciski, the Director of Community Services. So, ladies, welcome. We are thrilled to have you with us, and I'm looking forward to getting to know both of you more and to learning a lot more about what you're doing right here in our community. So let's kick it off. Either one of you can hop in and go first here. I'd love to hear your story. Where are you from? How did you get to Kokomo? How did you get involved? Just give us a little peek into who you are.
All right. Well, I'm Angie Ciski, and I'm not from Kokomo exactly. I grew up in Rocheville.
Okay.
And I still live in Rocheville. So that's definitely nearby.
Yep.
So I love Kokomo. As far as Family Service Association, I have been with Family Service Association for 15 years.
Wow. Okay.
I started out, the first 8 was working with the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Program. And then in May of 2014, I hopped over to Jackson Street Commons. And so for the past 7 years, I've worked with our homeless veteran programs. And now in my new role as the Director of Community Services, I'm working with our veterans program still, but I'm also working with domestic violence and sexual assault again, as well as our supportive housing programs.
Okay.
So I love working for Family Service Association. I love our mission and what we stand for. Family Service Association, of course, is one of our leading nonprofits in our community. It's an umbrella organization with various programs in our community. Our mission is to promote healthy families and empower vulnerable individuals and families through our education, prevention, and crisis intervention programs.
Thank you, because my follow-up question to you is going to be, for those who may not know, tell us about, I'll say FSA, but Family Service Association.
Yes.
You just explained it. So thank you, because that was going to be my next question, is for those of us that aren't familiar.
And I think even if you are moderately, a little familiar, slightly familiar, I don't know, with FSA, I think a lot of times people see FSA and they equate it maybe just with one program. And FSA, as we, because we're partnering with FSA for this month's Communities Give Back program.
Right.
And as Pam and I think this is true with a lot of nonprofits, right? The closer you get to it, nonprofits are doing so much. Right? I mean, there are hidden gems, tiny programs, things that only serve, in every nonprofit through our community, things that serve hundreds of people and programs that maybe serve 15, right? And it's so amazing, I think, when we get to peek back the curtain and see all of the life change that's happening. So FSA was such a cool one, I think, for me to get a little bit closer to, because I have had some experience with Jackson Street Commons, obviously have known about the domestic violence shelter, but really to see there is life change happening for families, for individuals in all these different ways. So I'm really like big fan of FSA and continuing to be so the more that I'm able to interact and learn from you guys.
Yeah. So, Marla, I'd love to hear your story. You're up. How did you land in Kokomo? Tell us a little bit about you.
I am born and raised here, have always been in Kokomo.
Okay.
So my story isn't super exciting. I've just always been a member of this community.
Love it.
I started at FSA in 2017 and left for a little while and then just returned back last year.
Okay.
And when I left, it still had my heart. There's not a job for me that compares to that. That's as fulfilling as this work is for me. And so there's nothing that compares.
I love it.
Cool.
And I just want to say and push back a little bit, because I actually do think your story is very exciting. I love to meet people who have chosen to put down roots in the community that they're from. So anytime I meet a Kokomo kid who's grown up and doing amazing things as an adult in the community that they love, that to me is inspiring, because, as you know, some people, they grow up in Kokomo and they just can't wait to leave and they can't wait. And it's like, well, but stay, because there are, obviously everyone has their own journey. I'm not saying you have to stay, but I love to meet a Kokomo kid because it should, you see something here. This is a great place. You've decided to lean in and to lead. So I just little note, but okay. Tell us more. Tell us more about FSA. I feel like we got the kind of 5,000 foot view. You mentioned it is an umbrella organization with several programs underneath it. But tell us about those programs put you on the spot, as much detail as possible, but tell us what's going on.
As much detail as possible, but also, I mean, there are so many programs.
That's right.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
There are. We have probably 12 to 14 different programs through Family Service Association. Our education and prevention programs include Prevent Child Abuse, Gear Up for Safety. Those are programs that folks can get free car seats or pack and plays. And just, education about raising their children and prevent child abuse. We have Healthy Families, and through that program...
It's a great program.
Yes, absolutely. And we have, advocates that go into the homes and teach first-time parents about prenatal and proper child care skills.
Okay.
We have a DCS Case Management program. We have Jackson Street Commons, which is our supportive housing program for formerly homeless disabled veterans. And we also have other programs for veterans that may not be literally homeless, but may be about to be homeless. And so we have a housing specialist where she can meet with those other veterans in the community that are just experiencing housing instability.
Okay.
And of course, we have the domestic violence and sexual assault program, where we provide direct services to men, women, and children who are fleeing domestic violence. We provide direct services through our emergency shelter, of course, but we also have a 24-hour crisis hotline. We have case management, we have advocates, we have support groups, we have life skill classes. We have a sexual assault advocate, and she actually serves not just Howard County, but Howard, Miami, Cass, and Tipton counties. We do so much just through the domestic violence and sexual assault program. And recently, our executive director, Tracy Martino, started a domestic violence coalition, which just keeps growing and growing. And there's so many people in our community that are passionate about domestic violence and wanting to spread the word about it, make sure that we're educating our community about domestic violence and sexual assault so that people know the signs and know where to get resources.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So
Really important.
that's just highlighting many of our programs. I hope I'm not forgetting one.
I think it's important to mention, I'm just going to toss in there, at least for the domestic violence shelter, you don't have to be in the shelter to access our services. So you can come to the support groups, come to our life skills classes, access case management without actually staying in the shelter, and that all of our services are free. So there's no cost, to anyone, which I know that sometimes people hesitate to reach out for services because of possible expense.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that because, as we keep learning more about all the resources that are offered, that is one of those things that I would love to be able to tell every single person in Kokomo about, is that just because you find yourself in whatever circumstance you find yourself in, there are ways to help. Mm-hmm. There are ways to receive help, and it doesn't necessarily mean staying in the shelter. Like, there are so many other ways that you can be resourced, and to know that it's free, that takes away a lot of roadblocks for people, thinking, why I couldn't afford that, or, all of those layers and variables when it comes to making a decision or making a change or whatever that might be for an individual. I think that's incredible.
Well, and I think, I love that those services are free for people, but they're not free for you guys to put on, right? And so that is why the Kokomo Post has partnered with you guys, and you are our Communities Give Back program recipient for the month of September. How are we in September already?
I know.
Like, when did that happen? But if you guys don't know, every month this year, what we've been doing is partnering with a different nonprofit organization in town. We create just a fresh piece of apparel for each of those nonprofits, and then sell that apparel on our website. And 100% of the proceeds from that merchandise, those sales go straight to those nonprofits. So we've been able to give back thousands of dollars this year, and you guys are our recipient for September. So we're just in the middle of finalizing our design. I think we do have a final design, and I think it's awesome. I think it really speaks to the work of the domestic violence shelter, but also a lot of the work that you guys are doing in other areas as well. And I think we can, if you want to, Michael, if you want to put that up on our screen, definitely we want to be able to show that design because we're really proud of it. We're really proud of it, and I think it's something that we want people to wear. We want to spread awareness for the work that you guys are doing, but our hope is we can also help you guys help support the work that you're doing because you've been supporting this community for so long in such deep and meaningful ways.
Yeah. Did you mention the match from Community First Bank?
Oh, I didn't.
Because every month is up to $500 Community First Bank of Indiana matches. So it's such a cool way to make an impact. And just to fangirl about Community First for a second, they're really living up to their name. They're giving back to our community right here in Kokomo.
Yep. So if you want to support that, you can go check out the kokomopost.com/shop. And right now, up on that website live, we've got links that you can purchase that merchandise. And again, 100% of the proceeds is going to go back to these guys at FSA to support all of those life-giving programs. So shop, buy Christmas gifts, buy gifts for other people, send gifts to out of town, and let's help these guys to continue the work they're doing.
Yeah. So, talking about the work that you're doing, Angie and Marla, you are two people who have given your lives to help other people and to help other people improve their lives. So I want to hear, why do you do that? Why do you choose to do that? I want to go maybe even before that. How'd you get into this work? Who signs up to say, like, do you know what I really want to do? Work exceptionally hard, many, many hours, not make an insane amount of money. Like, that's what yes, I want to do that. No one says that. How'd you get to this?
Okay, so around 15 years ago, I answered an ad in the paper for advocate position at the domestic violence program. I graduated from IUK with a degree in humanities and a minor in folklore.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't plan
like
on
a
going
really
into social
easy
work.
transition, right?
Yeah.
But I fell in love with the work. I think that people that work in the social service field, you have to have a heart for helping people.
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't be doing it. And so it's hard work, and some days are harder than others. But there's just something that's very rewarding about knowing that you're affecting lives on a personal level.
Yeah.
And that you're helping people.
Yeah. And here's what I know about you, because you and I had some in a previous life for me. I was also a nonprofit, and so you and I have worked together before through Jackson Street Commons. And I think the very first time I met you, it was at a community, sort of like a family meeting at Jackson Street Commons.
Yeah,
and
every Friday we have a community meeting at 10 o'clock with the residents.
And the residents are awesome, and each one of those residents has their own set of barriers, right? And we've talked about this many times, that have sort of led them to the place that they're in. And I met you, and within probably 5 minutes, I mean, Angie, her authenticity and her passion, she had tears in her eyes as she is talking to these veterans and trying to figure out how can she motivate them, how can she help them take, because all of their next steps are different. It's not the same next step for them. And she has, I mean, what I vividly remember was she had tears in her eyes, and she had, and I actually think there was a resident there who had passed away recently, and I was just, I was so struck by how deeply you felt, and how much, I mean, it was ripping your heart out, and you were just all in for helping these folks who, I would guess this. I don't want to say this, but I bet sometimes that's really hard, because I bet sometimes folks don't, in that area, maybe are a little resistant to help. Yeah, I mean, I was amazed by your, just by your heart and your authenticity to serve those people.
Well, thank you for saying that. Family Service Association, across our programs, we meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people are in different places.
Yeah.
And they all have barriers that they're struggling with. And some need more help than others.
Yeah.
But we meet people where they're at. And you do grow attached to the clients that you're working with.
And I have seen you, I mean, your just love for people, your love for, and again, I haven't seen you in sort of the other facets of FSA, but I have seen you sort of just exactly like you said, come to wherever each person was and figure out, how can I help them right here to take whatever that next step is. And every single next step looked completely different. And you were sort of a master at figuring out and sitting down and being sort of right there next to them at the table to talk about, like, okay, well, what is a step?
Yeah.
And like, man, that just, I will never forget that first meeting and seeing your heart in that.
She's pretty awesome.
I agree.
So is Marla. We have a great team at Family Service Association.
You guys do.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask more. You know,
Yeah.
like, were you, when you were a little girl in preschool, were you helping other kids? Like, when was there a point, and maybe not, maybe you just have evolved and grown over the years and your path has been led to family services. But is there a marker, or is there some point in your life where you can identify, like, you know what, that was the season that I really figured out that helping people gives me life. Helping people energizes me, because you're right. To be in social services of any kind, you have to have that love of people and that heart of service, because if not, well, maybe you could hack it for 3 months, but you're not going to be there for very long. So for two people who have invested years, can you tell us, like, why and what in you is there something in you that you can identify to say, yep, that's how I knew I was called to serve and help others?
Well, I would say I really came to that realization when I started working at the domestic violence program.
Okay.
About 15 years ago.
Okay.
I've always, even as a child, wanted to help others. But I would say that as an adult working at the domestic violence program, and just seeing how when you're working with clients and they know that you care, that really helps a lot, and that goes a long ways. And so I think that's when it started for me, was working at the domestic violence and sexual assault program.
Okay. Marla, how about for you?
So my story is different than Angie's. I am a survivor myself, and so as I progressed in my healing journey, I had like a lifelong career in banking.
Okay.
And probably about 10 years ago, I remember sitting at my desk for several days thinking, like, there has to be more than this. Like, what is the purpose in what I'm doing? Like, there has to be more. Just that yearning for not that banking doesn't matter, but something that mattered more, had more substance to it. And so conveniently enough, the little credit union that I was at was going through a merger.
Okay.
And it was a one-person operation, little teeny tiny credit union here in town. And so they offered to keep me on, and I just felt like that season was over. And so I left, cutting our household income in half, not having a clue what was next, and stepped out on faith, basically. And then a few months later, there was an ad in the paper for FSA, and I called thinking it was the food stamp office.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, I'll get to connect with those who are marginalized, those that are the least of these, those that society often, considers or deems less than, and found out it was family services, which I knew nothing about at the time, and ended up getting the job at that time. And it was just the clerical worker for the nonviolence classes. So I'm checking in the offenders that actually were the abusers in domestic violence situations. And then a few months later, the office manager at the domestic violence shelter opened up. And so I thought, oh my gosh, like my heart for this, from being a survivor and taking that healing journey, and then also my clerical experience from banking, like just seemed like the perfect intersection that would be like a dream job for me. And so I applied and was chosen, and like, it's never a job to me. Like, I tell everyone, don't tell Tracy Martino this, but like, I would do this job for free. Like, it's a passion. And if you don't have a job that you wake up to and want to go to every day, or that you would do for free, then I encourage you to find out what that is, because there's just nothing like it, And so that's why I do what I do. There's nothing more rewarding to me than seeing those light bulbs come on when, our clients have that piece of education, or they've never known what a healthy relationship looks like, or they don't recognize domestic violence because it's been part of their life for their entire life. So they just think that's love, that's normal, and so and seeing them find out, a lot of times when our clients come in, they're skeptical of us.
Sure.
They don't trust us. They don't trust that we're really going to help them. And you can just see those walls come down a little bit more. And like within like 3 to 7 days, they're usually a completely different person than when they enter. First of all, they're safe, which is an amazing quality for them. Like a lot of them come in and just crash the first 24 to 48 hours just because they know that they're safe, But to see those barriers come down and learn to trust us and learn that we really do have their best interest at heart. And so that's why I do what I do. I can't imagine doing anything else that would fulfill my heart like this, and then also serve the community in the way at the same time.
Gosh, Marla, thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing that part of your story. How powerful. And you're right. What a way to use your healing journey, your experience, and the gifts that you have. It really does sound like a dream.
It is a dream. It is.
Wow. How cool. Okay. So go ahead, Erin.
I was going to say, I have so many thoughts. One, Howard County is fairly lucky because there are not many domestic violence shelters and programs through Indiana, correct?
Right.
So we are one of just a handful, and I think, you'd think, we've got, 92, 94 counties in Indiana.
Yeah.
They certainly don't all have the kind of programming and resources that we do. So I mean, what a fortunate, in some ways, community we have to continue to have. This is such a resource to continue to educate people. So that is incredible. And I love hearing the good. What I would love to hear from you guys, and not in a bad way, is you continue to choose this. What is hard about this job? Where are the places where there are sticking points?
Well, I think it's hard because, as far as at the shelter, like right now, we're short-staffed. And so there's a handful of us, and there's so many people in need.
Yeah.
And we work well with other agencies, but sometimes it can just be hard when there's not a lot of people in the social service field.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to take your work home with you.
I bet.
And it's hard when our clients make choices that we wish they didn't make, but, they're the drivers in their own lives.
Yeah.
And so I think just, accepting that and
I feel like I can see that about you because of how I've seen you interact with people, and you can tell. How do you do that? How do you leave that for both of you? How do you leave that at sort of the office and not bring it home? I mean, because I can tell from just talking to you guys, this is not a job for you guys.
Yeah.
This is so embodied in who you are, to help and to serve and to lift other people up. Man, how do you?
That's probably one of the most challenging parts of the job, I think, is
Yeah.
to not, because we serve 24/7, and crisis doesn't have boundaries, right? It doesn't clock out, and so we don't really clock out. We try to, but we don't, and we get on each other all the time. And Tracy Martino gets on us, like, stop working, stop answering your emails, stop texting, like things like that. But it's really impossible at times, and Angie and I tease each other, and we're like, if we don't answer emails, then we're going to have like 500 when we come back. And so, not just the serving clients part of it, but the business side of it too. But also, I think because we do love it, it is exhausting, but I bet you love it. And so I don't know. I don't even know like how you would label that, but it's like a good exhausting. And so there's never a part when you're just like, oh my gosh, it's just not.
I heard
not
someone
for me,
say, I heard someone say once, if you're in the wrong field, you come home at the end of the day and you're exhausted. If you're in the right field, you come home at the end of the day feeling fulfilled and exhausted.
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's perfect.
Not exhausted in a bad way, but just poured out. I did everything that I possibly could, and I know why I'm feeling fulfilled. And I feel like you guys are sort of in that latter bucket. So I love that. Man.
We have a great team too.
Yeah.
We have great staff, and we work together. And especially we've seen during this time of being short-staffed, as everyone else is. Our staff steps up and helps out to fill, some shift openings that we have, and we just I feel like we have great communication and we work well, and so all of that benefits, to get through those times that are more challenging. But I think you were talking about one of the other hard parts of the job, I think, is just seeing more potential in those that we serve than they see in themselves. And so, and we do have, clients that we see repeatedly, and, we can just hope that each time we see them that they are maybe grasping that education piece a little bit more, learning a little bit more, that they're learning about healthy love a little bit more. And, Angie and I talked this morning, that victims / survivors usually leave 6 to 8 times before they finally leave for good, and sometimes it's more than that. And so we just have to keep that in the back of in our minds. Like, we're not the driver of their situation, they are, and we're just there to support them on that journey. So,
I feel like that has to have been a hard, just a hard lesson to learn for you guys who care so deeply.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about planting a seed in someone.
I love that. I love what you're saying, not because of the circumstance, but what the hope that you have and that belief in people. I mean, I love people, but if someone asks my opinion on what they should get for lunch and they don't take it, which is silly and inconsequential.
Right, yeah.
And as far as someone being the driver of their own lives, which I agree with, and I'm like, that will annoy me to the slightest degree. I'm like, I told you to get tacos. Why'd you go get a sandwich? Let alone these issues and these circumstances that people are dealing with, which are significantly more important than tacos or a sandwich. But I know on a level, such a tiny level of minutia, how that feels.
Yeah.
But the shift in attitude and outlook of human beings to see like, gosh, I see something in you. You know, maybe I planted a seed. That's a game changer.
Well, and I think that's an interesting, like, you know, it's very natural to think like my measure of success is, did you take my taco recommendation?
Yes.
Right? Like, was it quick and immediate? Like, has this job shaped how you guys view and sort of measure? What does success look like for you guys? What is a win? What does success look like for you?
Yeah, good question.
Well, I've often said that when you're working with a client or the clients we work with, you measure success on an individual basis as far as what are their goals.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we have to remember that. It's not about us, it's about them. And what they want sometimes is different from what we want for them.
What a lack of, what a selflessness you have to learn to put yourself sort of out of the main character in that story.
It's freedom, right? And it's empowerment. It's empowerment for them. It's not us just having our way with them. It's us empowering them for whatever success looks like for them. You know?
Yeah.
I'm taking notes. Truly, I am.
Yes. Well, and I feel like just as a parent, right? You saw my kids are young. There's some parallels here in parenting as well.
Yeah.
And that's in no way what this podcast is about. But I personally am taking this as, oh wow, there's a lot of places where I bet as my kids continue to grow older, it will be seed planting and less.
Right.
And less taco recommendations.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And that the approach of what are their goals?
Yeah.
If their goals are not your goals that you would have for them, that's okay.
Yeah.
But helping them to take the steps towards reaching the goals that they have for their life.
It's about, you know, helping them try to have a healthy lifestyle, but also, you know, improving their quality of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, you know, like the parenting aspect. Like I've carried some of this over to my kids are grown, and so, you know, they know everything at this point. And so, just giving them that freedom of, you know, like I can, like if we apply that to a client in a domestic violence situation, like I could try to control you and tell you to leave and tell you this is how it's going to go down, but then you don't learn in that process. Like you're being obedient to my wishes. You're not learning on that journey and making that decision yourself to really find that place of freedom and find that place of learning for yourself to where you feel that freedom yourself, if that makes sense, and that empowerment yourself of learning that lesson. Because if you don't, like even with kids, right? If you're telling them what to do and they're just being obedient, then sometimes we cost them that lesson that they learn in the meantime of going ahead and making maybe that choice that wasn't as wise, and then ultimately leading to that path of freedom where they're just like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I've learned my lesson.
There is a difference.
There is.
There really is, just like blind obedience versus that, you know, it becomes your own.
Yeah,
you learn
but what a
that
human
lesson.
thing when you're sitting across the table from someone. Didn't mean to hit you there. I'm beating you up. But what a human thing when you're sitting across the table and you know that the answer is leave, right? Or do the thing that I'm telling you to do. I've seen this 100 times. I've lived through this myself. I'm telling you this is where you need to go.
Yeah.
Because isn't that like what we would naturally sort of think to do is tell them like, I've seen it. I know where this is going to end up. You need to go. You need to make this choice. to learn and figure out how to coach them and let them and sort of give them room and space to find that on their own. What an art. What an art.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about Kokomo. You both are smart and talented, and you have incredible gifts. As we've mentioned, you're either from the area. I joked before we started, like, oh, Rushville out west,
way out west,
way out west, the Wild West. But you're here, and Marla, you are a Kokomo kid, and you're here, and you're leading, and you're serving, and you're doing this incredible work. So I'd love to hear you talk more about why Kokomo. Why did you stay in Kokomo for good or for bad?
And you may know that at the Kokomo Post we are like sort of like annoyingly emphatically in love with Kokomo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So this is like two almost like just sort of ridiculous levels. We're both transplants from here. On our team, we've got some folks who were born and raised Kokomo, and then some folks who have come in here. And I sort of tell this every time. I thought I'd be here a year. Yesterday, 17 years ago yesterday was when I started at the Tribune. So big thanks. There was a managing editor there who thought I had something. And even though I looked dumb and showed up in wildly unprofessional clothing, he still hired me. And I fell in love with this town, right? And so then I've done a couple different things in career and came back here very similar in a way. I started in media and entertainment and moved into nonprofit and called back to media and entertainment. And I think it's based around, I love this town.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would, but I love this place and I love continuing to fight to make it better.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear your response to why Kokomo. But even more than that, I'd love to hear your observations as, lifelong Howard County residents. How have you seen and experienced Kokomo over the years? For better, for worse? Changes, growth, evolution, perhaps?
Yeah.
Like, what have you observed and why Kokomo?
Well, for me, growing up around the Kokomo area, I'm primarily here because I'm very close to my family and my family's here.
Okay.
But it has been awesome to see Kokomo grow over the years. I mean, we have a baseball stadium now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much over the years that's happened in Kokomo. And I think we have a great community. I think we look out for each other. And, the citizens care about each other. And so I just think Kokomo's a great place.
Same.
I think the same. I mean, born and raised here, and my family has always been here. So I don't think there's ever really been that thought for me to leave, except for I wish we had a beach. That would make it just perfect for me to live here. So I don't think I really ever thought about leaving. And then I think, particularly since I've been at Family Services working in the non-profit world, I've just seen how generous and supportive this community is, which has made me fall in love with it even more. And so, and as far as the changes I've seen, I don't know that it's changes or it's just an awareness in me to see really.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely been growth, that I've seen before I worked at Family Services, but I think also then working at Family Service Association, I've also seen the growth for the needs that we have, which I think, living in my own little world before I was in nonprofit world, I don't think I was as aware of the needs that we have.
And I'm sort of curious, I mean, sort of same question in light of the services of FSA. Has the community, what has changed in the community? Are they more in need of services? Are your services, able to hit what, I guess for your client base, for folks who are coming to you, what has changed and shaped over the last few years? I'm curious.
I feel like for me, just at the domestic violence shelter in the last 4 years, I've seen a shift in our clientele. There's a lot more struggling with addiction. Not that it wasn't present before, but it just seems more prevalent now. And also, we know human trafficking has been going on, but now we're really starting to see the evidence of that and getting phone calls and serving. And I feel like even our sexual assault calls have increased. I'm not saying, technically that the numbers are up. I don't know that the reporting is up because we know that that's underreported the way that it is. Yeah. But as far as those victims and survivors reaching out for services, I feel like they're contacting us possibly more, than they were.
Well, and you kind of touched on it, but Pam and I sat in on the Domestic Violence Coalition phone call just a couple weeks ago, and we both, just sat there, sort of shook at the end of that. Just in talking about the need across the community, but the section on human trafficking, I think, was exceptionally eye-opening for me, at least.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that is happening in our community? I think sometimes there is a tendency for people to think human trafficking, and they think like that weird European, like Taken, right? Like they think there's someone who is kidnapped and snatched out of nowhere and I don't know, forced into a sex trade of some sort. So tell us a little bit more about what is happening here locally. How does that show up?
So we have been getting more calls recently with referrals for clients that have been victims of human trafficking. And we've even just recently reached out to the Office for the Victims of Crime. And FSA is going to be coordinating some trainings for us and also for the community on knowing the signs of human trafficking.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's with so many things, it's that education component.
Yeah.
And, Marla, you said something along these lines, like before you started your work with FSA, you kind of lived in, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did you say bubble? Yeah. But, that call was it was so important and such a wake-up call because I can very easily live in my bubble, take the kids to school and come to work and do a sport thing and eat dinner and go home. If you are not looking for it, if you don't know the signs to look for, how can the community be generous in more ways than just financial or donating supplies?
Yeah.
Can we be generous with our awareness, with our education, with, you're right. I do wonder if there is, I don't want to say this broad sweeping statement, but often I think human trafficking doesn't look like what we think it looks like.
Yes.
It's not a snatching out of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Is it someone we know? Is it, what are the signs to look for?
On the call, you guys referenced that there's, there's maybe some addiction precursors that may pull people into a trafficking situation. So, tell us more. How can we help use this platform to educate people?
Well, I think it's great that you guys are helping us just get the word out into the community. Early on when I was talking about FSA's mission and our various programs and the direct services we provide, I don't know that I highlighted enough that we do also do a lot of education in the community. Yeah. Education and prevention, spreading the word. Yeah. Getting the word out there about these issues that the vulnerable people in our community struggle with, and reducing stigmas. Yeah. Because there's a stigma to people that are experiencing domestic violence or sexual assault or mental health issues or addiction issues, and reducing the stigma. And I think not just FSA, but other agencies too are really good about trying to do that in our community, reduce the stigma so that people come forward and ask for help.
Yeah.
And that the people know about the resources. Know who to call.
I love that, and I'm excited sort of that we get to spend part of September just lifting up the work that you do. I mean, this is a piece of it, but we're going to continue as we continue to tell people about communities. Again, the kokomopost.com/shop. As we continue to do that, I'm hoping that we can sort of shine a light on all of the work, all the education that you guys are doing.
I think too, like, we picture, my daughter's 22 and like I've got on her last nerve about the human trafficking thing because, it's real. It's very real. And it's been going on, whether we have heard about it or not. We know that it's been happening. And so, it's not typically, the creepy white van that pulls up and grabs somebody and puts them in there. Not that it can't be, but that's not how things are done these days. There's a grooming process of, possibly, a girl befriending a girl and a vulnerable girl generally, maybe that's from a lower socioeconomic status that maybe doesn't have the means to go to college or doesn't have the means to buy, the electronics like everyone else or get their nails done. And maybe that friend then indulges them with those gifts and those things that the girl couldn't otherwise afford. And it's established over like this 6 to 9 month or even longer relationship. And then all of a sudden, I remember in being in training one time, and this girl shared her testimony that she had became friends with this girl and her family, had dinner at her house many times, but she was from a single parent home, and her mother struggled with alcoholism, and her mother were at odds a lot, and they didn't have the money for the girl to go to school. And so one night she's at the friend's house and they're having spaghetti dinner. And they open up and share that they're involved in this trafficking business and ask her if she would like to be part of that, basically to earn money. And she declines and thinks nothing more of it. And so the family gets ready and they're all going to this party later. And the friend that's related to the family gets the vulnerable girl a drink, and she said the next thing she knows, she wakes up in a bedroom naked with a man on top of her, and the guy gets off, and the father of her friend walks in the room and says, "Don't ever tell me no again." And she was able later to escape that situation, but that's how it happened. None of us would picture that that's how human trafficking gets established, right? And so, we would think that's just a friend of our daughter. She's going over there for dinner. She's spending the night. And so that's where I think that education piece comes in, that we just all are more aware of exactly, the various... and we've heard stories of, college girls where cute boys are recruiters to bring these girls to parties, and things like that. And so really the education piece, not just with human trafficking, but even with sexual assault and, the whole, I don't know the word I want to use, but the kind of, disbelief with the whole Me Too movement and the support that some victims and survivors didn't receive there. I just encourage everyone, educate yourself, because it's eye-opening. If you take the time, if you're going to take the time to have a negative opinion, take the time to dig in and do some research.
Yeah. Wow. And that's a story from Kokomo. This happened locally.
The story with the girl?
Yeah.
No, it was in a training in Indianapolis that we'd heard.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it happened in Kokomo. I don't know where it happened, but that's an example of how it happens.
And how...
it could happen in Kokomo, right?
It could.
It's not like it's outlandish that it
Reasonably
could happen
that
here.
happened in Indiana.
Well, and I'm thinking like, gosh, when I was a teenager in college, what a normal set of circumstances.
Yeah.
New friend, dinner with her family.
Right.
That's all very normal.
Right.
I wouldn't think, oh, you guys are having spaghetti? Well, I want to come.
Right.
Those are circumstances that are not white van pulls up, pulls you off the sidewalk. And again, like you said, not to say that can't happen, but that first part of that story, I'm thinking, that would have been me.
Right.
I would have said yes to that.
Right.
Of course I would have gone to a spaghetti dinner. I've never said no to that.
Right.
I love spaghetti.
Wow. But the education component and the awareness, how does that happen? Does a group call you and ask for someone from Family Services to come out? Are you in schools? Some of this, obviously, these things that we're talking about are very delicate and would not be appropriate for a young child. But I'm thinking, are there ways to equip kids?
And we do presentations in the schools.
Okay, great.
Before the pandemic, we would go out on a regular basis, staff from the domestic violence program, to do curriculum called Healthy Relationships.
Okay.
So it was going into the middle school and high school classrooms in our local schools and talking about what does the healthy relationship look like.
Wow.
And we do presentations in the colleges too. This month, I'm going to be doing presentations with some IUK classes. Next month, Ivy Tech. But we get calls from, people in the community, different organizations or groups or churches that want us to do a presentation on domestic violence, sexual assault. I've done many presentations for Jackson Street Commons to talk about the veteran population and homelessness.
Yeah.
And we're always happy to do that.
Yeah.
Tracy Martino does so many presentations in the community.
She's amazing.
Because it's getting the word out there.
Yeah.
And educating people and sharing what we know with others in the community.
I don't know how to ask this question and it not maybe sound weird. I just know, like, with so many subjects, healthy nutrition or movement and, the younger you, or like teaching someone another language, the younger you start, the oftentimes they're able to latch onto that concept. Is there a way, or are there presentations for like elementary kids, obviously not using such explicit language, but teaching them things like healthy relationships and consent and on their level?
That's a great question. And recently, we have something called Heroes Curriculum.
Okay.
And that is for the younger kids. And oftentimes we do children's programming at the domestic violence program too.
Okay. Because it's anyone, man, woman, or child who's been a victim. Okay. So there's services for those kids. Okay.
Yeah. And that focuses on the 40 developmental assets. So it's about the developmental assets individually, right? And if we teach that from a healthy perspective young, then we're kind of doing prevention from an early age rather than having to teach, back up and do like the healing thing later on, if that makes sense. Yeah.
You said it. That's how I wanted to ask it. Yeah. How it's more a prevention than a healing. Both are incredibly important. I don't want to minimize one over the other. Okay.
So, I'm wondering, as someone who, if there's someone who's watching this, who's listening to, there's so much need, right? In all of the work that you're doing in all of these facets. And there's someone who's watching or listening and they want to get involved, they want to help you, they want to be a support to the work you're doing. What would you say to them?
They might want to consider a volunteer position, because that's basically up to the volunteer. Sometimes we have volunteers in the community that want to come in as a group or individually and just want it to be like a 1 or 2 time thing. And then sometimes we have volunteers that want to come in on a more regular basis, especially if they have a passion for a certain population, whether it be the veteran population or domestic violence. But we definitely appreciate volunteers in our community. So that's one way to help that's not necessarily monetarily.
Yeah, we love the volunteers, and we're getting ready to expand we want to offer more activities at this shelter. Since Angie and I have accepted these positions, we want to get back to more activities because it's kind of a self-care thing, right? It helps them clock out of maybe the reality of the place that they're in, why they're in the shelter. So just more things like, popcorn and movie night, Sundays on Sunday, things like that. And so volunteers could come in and do like a craft night. They could do a cooking night. They could do, whatever their hobbies are. Just come in and share that with the clients, that are in shelter. We're also in the process of establishing wish lists on Amazon and Target that we'll have posted on our website if they want to help with a donation in that way. But we appreciate everyone that helps out in the many ways that they do.
I would also add to consider, getting involved in some of our events. In October, we have our annual Angel Walk.
Yes.
October 26th. And that's a collaboration with Indiana University Kokomo.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's a fundraiser for the domestic violence program, but it's also a rally to bring awareness to domestic violence and sexual assault.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So, and you can get more information on that by going to our website,
And what is your website, just so we make sure we have it?
Yep.
www.fsahc.org. Did I get that right, Marla?
Yeah.
I get it. FSA Howard County. I got it.
But maybe even putting together a team
Yeah.
for that. That would be awesome.
That's my birthday, so maybe that could be a really cool
I love that.
way to celebrate. Like get a team and
Yeah.
yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I have some ideas.
And
Okay.
we will have a survivor story there.
Yes.
I think sometimes when people hear from the clients we serve, the ones that are willing and want to share
Yeah,
their story,
right.
That's impactful.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Yes, because sometimes I think, talking about some of these big conceptual ideas can feel really big and overwhelming. But when you hear and meet an individual and hear how that person's life was impacted and their healing journey and some of the steps that it kind of brings it down to the ground level for someone that's like, I want to help, but it all feels so big. What can I do? Well, there are things you can do. You don't have to save the whole world at one
Right.
time.
Yeah.
You can take small steps and still make an impact. So hearing those testimonies and seeing faces and knowing names, that really matters.
Yeah.
So I think that's such an important component in the Angel Walk, which I'm saying we've heard about this event now multiple times. I'm trying to think of who else we were talking to that shared this event with us. But what an incredible thing. So that is a way for people to get involved right here in the community is to participate in some of these events.
I love it. I love it. Well, and kind of as we land the plane here, we've got two questions that we ask everyone who comes on the podcast. Very important, equally hard hitting. I'll take the first one, Pam. You can round it out. I get the real tough one. So, for whatever reason, you get only one more meal in Kokomo. At the Kokomo Post, we are big lovers of food, so connoisseurs. So you only get one more Kokomo meal. What is it going to be?
LR Arrows.
Yes. Said correctly.
Excellent answer. Now, specifically, what's your order?
Yeah.
I usually get the chicken burrito with the taco and rice, that platter. So that's what I
Their
What are you
tomatillo
drinking?
salsa?
usually water with lemon.
All right.
Do not sleep on their tomatillo salsa. It's so
It is
good.
good.
It's amazing.
Okay, great answer.
Great answer. Marla, what you got?
I would say hacienda.
Ooh, okay, what's your order?
So I would probably get the wet burrito. Love the chips and salsa. Got to have some ranch, and then have to have the chocolate mudslide for dessert.
Okay.
Yes, all day on that mudslide.
We have heard. I've never had the mudslide. I've heard rumor of this
You
dish.
have to have the mudslide.
We have to. All right. So
So
Aaron,
a battle of Mexican here.
yes. Note that if we want to take them to lunch, well, chips and salsa is on the menu.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Wherever
sure.
we go.
Wherever we're going. I like it. Okay.
Okay.
Good answers. Good answers.
And honestly, as lifelong Howard County residents, I hold your answers in high regard because you're not
You've
new
tried
to
the
the
things.
city. You've tried it all. I assume. I don't know. Okay. So our final question we ask all our podcast guests, and I love hearing these answers. I can't wait to hear yours. For you, what does a stronger, better Kokomo look like?
Well, I think just coming from the perspective of working for a nonprofit, just to see the nonprofit agencies in our community keep working well together and work even better together, because it takes that collaboration, working together, to truly be able to serve the needs of the vulnerable in our community.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah. Great answer.
Great answer. I mean, I think from my time in nonprofit as well, like there is no way to serve everyone with such small staffs working independently.
Yeah.
Right? Like that spirit of collaboration, I think is how you're able to do more with less.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Great answer.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think somehow having an expansion of services that we're able to just have more low barrier housing and more mental health services is such a great need in our community, and just even more community awareness and education to where we all, I mean, it's right. I like to live in cotton candy rainbow fairy tale world where we just all really have that empathy and that non-judgmental mindset of really loving our fellow man just right where they're at, and not just passing judgment on the marginalized, and, you know, having a heart for them, and being willing to reach out and help them in whatever. We all have something to offer, right? We all do. We may not even know what it is, but we all do. And what a beautiful concept that would be, you know, if we all just came together and really Kokomo in general could just have that united mindset that we just want to make Kokomo a better place by helping everyone in Kokomo be in a better place.
Yeah. Wow.
Awesome.
Great answer. Thank you. You know, I feel like we could keep talking and keep going and have part 2, part 3, part 4.
Yes.
I am on a personal note, I'm just so grateful to you both. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Yes.
I appreciate your leadership in our community. I want to acknowledge you for what you're doing. It really matters. It really matters. And I don't know that what you do is a thankless job. I wonder if there are days when it is, but then I also hope you get lots of hugs and lots of stories of triumph and success. I'm inspired by you, and I'm really grateful for you both. So what a great conversation. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
I'm interested in, you know, next steps and other ways that we can get involved. Obviously, this month, our focus and our initiative is this communities, but beyond that and more, the conversation will continue. So thank you for joining us. And Kokomo, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Kokomo Post Podcast. We will see you next time.